Welcome to Your History, a place where you don't just hear about the past, you slip quietly into it. Before we begin, tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from and what your night feels like. Then settle in. Let the noise of your day fall away, because now you're someone else. Tonight, you are a Victorian morning photographer. London, 1872. A light mist drifts through the narrow streets, dimming the glow of gas lamps and the faint rattle of carriage wheels. The city settles into its nighttime rhythm. Shopkeepers shutter their windows. Doors close. Curtains are drawn. Yet above a small tailor's shop, a single light still burns. Inside the photography studio, you stand beside a wooden work table. A lamp glows beside you. Your fingers carry the faint scent of collodion and silver nitrate. You polish a glass plate with careful attention. Every surface must remain perfectly clean. Even a single speck of dust could ruin the photograph. Outside, a carriage passes along the street. The sound echoes briefly between the buildings before fading again. It is late. You are nearly finished for the evening. Then the bell above the shop door rings. A small sound, soft, uncertain. You pause, because you already know what that kind of knock often means. Somewhere in London tonight, someone has died, and their family has come looking for the photographer. You place the glass plate gently on the table and lift the lamp. The staircase creaks quietly as you descend to the shop below. When the door opens, cool night air slips inside. A man stands outside. His coat is damp with the evening air, his hat clenched between both hands. For a moment he struggles to speak. "My son," he says finally. "We hoped, perhaps, a photograph." You nod. In moments like this, words must be gentle. "Of course," you say quietly. "Give me a moment to prepare." You gather the equipment. The camera rests in a wooden case. Tripod, glass plates, chemicals. Everything travels with you. Within minutes, you step back into the street beside the man. London at night moves differently from the busy city of daylight. Quieter, slower. Your footsteps echo faintly on the pavement. Gas lamps glow dimly along the road. Somewhere far off, horses move through the darkened streets. You follow the man through several turns before arriving at a modest brick house. Light glows faintly through the windows. When the door opens, warmth spills into the cool air. Inside, the house is hushed. Curtains are drawn. Candles burn along a narrow hallway. A small table near the stairs holds a vase of lilies. You remove your hat. The man leads you upstairs. The boards creak beneath each step. Halfway up, you hear someone crying softly behind a closed door. At the end of the hall, a bedroom door opens. A woman stands there. Her eyes are red from grief, but she nods politely when she sees you. Inside the room, a boy lies on the bed beside the window. Perhaps 8 years old. His hair has been combed carefully. His hands rest across his chest. Someone has buttoned his shirt neatly. They have tried to make him appear peaceful. At first glance, he seems to be sleeping, but the stillness of the room reveals the truth. You set the camera case down quietly. In moments like this, every movement feels louder than usual. The room itself seems to listen. You begin by studying the light. Photography in this era depends entirely upon it. The window beside the bed offers the softest illumination. Even through the grey sky outside, the daylight is enough. You open the curtains slightly. A pale glow fills the room. Then you prepare the camera. The tripod legs unfold with a gentle click. You position the camera carefully beside the bed. The family watches, not from curiosity, but because this moment matters. This photograph may become the only portrait they ever have of their child. You turn to the mother. Would you like him to appear sleeping? You ask softly. Or seated? She looks at the boy for a long moment, then shakes her head. Sleeping, she whispers. You nod. That is often what families choose. A peaceful rest, a quiet dream. You adjust the blanket beneath the boy's shoulders, then step back to prepare the plate. The glass must be coated carefully, each movement steady, precise. In the silence of the room, a clock ticks somewhere downstairs. The father stands near the window, staring at the floor. The mother sits beside the bed, holding the boy's hand. When everything is ready, you slide the plate into the camera. You take a slow breath. Moments like this always feel delicate, almost sacred. You remove the lens cap. Light enters the camera. 1 second passes, then another. The room remains perfectly still. Then you replace the cap. The photograph is finished. The process lasts only seconds, but the quiet afterward lingers. The mother leans forward and kisses the boy's forehead. The father closes his eyes. You begin packing the equipment. Before leaving, you promise the photograph will be ready in 2 days. The man walks you to the door. Outside, the city waits in the dark. You step back into the street and begin the walk toward the studio. These quiet walks often stir old memories. You pass beneath a gas lamp and catch your reflection briefly in a dark shop window. For a moment, you hardly recognize the figure looking back. A photographer, the one families seek when they need a final portrait of someone they loved, someone trusted, with a moment most people never see. It still feels strange sometimes, because there was a time when you knew nothing of this work, a time when the studio did not belong to you, when you were only an apprentice learning how to polish lenses and clean glass plates, before families began knocking quietly at the door after nightfall, before you understood why some visitors spoke in whispers, before Mr. Halverson placed a morning photograph in your hands. You remember that evening clearly. The shop has already closed, and Mr. Halverson calls you into the dark room. You do not yet realize that stepping through that curtain will quietly change the course of your life. The room is dim. A red lantern glows beside the trays. The air smells faintly of chemicals and damp wood. Mr. Halverson lowers a glass plate into the developing solution. Watch closely, he says. You lean forward. At first the plate appears blank, then slowly. A faint shape forms. Lines emerge. Then the outline of a small face. Within moments, the image becomes clear. A little girl sits upright in a chair, her dress white, her hair carefully brushed, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looks calm, peaceful, but something about the stillness feels different. Too still. You glance at Mr. Halverson. She had already passed when this photograph was taken, he says quietly. You look again at the image. The girl cannot be older than 6. For a moment, the room grows very quiet, because the child reminds you of someone, your younger sister. You were only 10 when she became ill. Scarlet fever. The illness moved through your neighborhood one winter. Several children died in the same week. You remember the silence that followed in your home, the empty chair at the table, your mother moving slowly through the house, your father sitting beside the fire long after midnight. No photograph of your sister was ever taken. Cameras were rare then, and expensive. Her face survives only in memory, and memories fade. Mr. Halverson seems to understand. This work is not about death, he says softly. It is about memory. From that evening forward, Mr. Halverson begins teaching you the quieter side of photography, the work most photographers prefer not to discuss. Families sometimes ask for a final portrait before burial. Sometimes it is the only photograph they will ever possess. Children resting peacefully in bed, parents seated beside someone they have loved for many years, entire families gathered together for one last image. These rooms require patience. Mr. Halverson tells you once, you must move slowly. Grief changes the air itself, and over the years, he prepares you for the work that will one day become yours. Not every visit is as simple as the first photograph you saw in the darkroom. Some families arrive with very particular wishes. Victorian mourning customs can be elaborate. Certain households treat the portrait almost like a final gathering, a moment where the living and the departed share one last frame together. You begin to notice that wealthier families often plan these photographs with great care. One afternoon, Mr. Halverson receives a letter written in careful script. He reads it beside the lamp, then folds the paper slowly. Well, he says, this will be an unusual one. You look up from the glass plates you have been cleaning. Unusual how? He sets the letter on the table. The family would like their daughter photographed in the garden. You pause. Outside? Mr. Halverson nods. They say she loved the garden more than any room in the house. He hesitates a moment, and they wish the family to appear with her. 2 days later, you travel to a large estate on the edge of the city. Tall iron gates open onto a long gravel drive. Beyond them stretches a carefully maintained lawn. Even in the cool air of early spring, the garden is beautiful. Flowering branches spread above a wooden bench near the center of the lawn. And there, seated beneath a tree, is the girl. She looks perhaps 10 years old. Her hair is braided neatly, a ribbon tied carefully at the back. Her dress is pale blue. A small basket of flowers rests in her lap. At first glance, the scene could be mistaken for an ordinary portrait, a child resting in the afternoon light. But the stillness reveals the truth. Her parents stand nearby, 2 younger brothers, and an older woman who may be their grandmother. The mother approaches Mr. Halverson quietly. We hoped, she says softly, that she might appear as she did when she sat here with us. Mr. Halverson nods. You would like the family seated with her? The woman lowers her eyes. Yes. There is no embarrassment in her voice, only longing. Mr. Halverson turns to you. Bring the tripod closer. You position the camera while he studies the light. Outdoor photographs require careful timing. Clouds move slowly across the sky. Sunlight filters through the branches above the bench. It is soft enough. Then Mr. Halverson speaks to the family. If you would sit as you normally might. The mother sits beside the girl. One boy stands near the bench. The other leans gently against his grandmother. For a moment, the scene resembles an ordinary family portrait, except for the stillness. No one speaks. No one moves. Even the breeze seems to pause in the branches. Mr. Halverson adjusts the girl's hands slightly in her lap, then steps back to examine the arrangement. The light touches her face gently. Her head tilts slightly toward her mother, almost as though she is listening. You begin to understand what the family wants, not a photograph of death, but a photograph of togetherness. One last moment where the child remains part of the family. Mr. Halverson prepares the plate, slides it into the camera. Everyone becomes perfectly still. The mother rests her hand on the girl's shoulder. The father stands behind the bench. For several seconds, the entire garden seems to hold its breath. Mr. Halverson removes the lens cap. Light enters the camera. The seconds pass. Then he replaces the cap. The photograph is finished. No one moves immediately. The mother continues holding her daughter's shoulder, as though the image has captured more than a moment. Later that evening, back in the dark room, the image appears beneath the red lantern, the bench, the flowering branches, the family gathered together, and the girl seated peacefully among them. At first, it resembles any portrait taken on a quiet afternoon, until you remember the stillness. Mr. Halverson studies the image beside you. Every family remembers differently, he says. Some prefer a quiet bedroom. Others wish to remember their loved one as they were in life. You watch the image settle fully into the glass, and slowly you begin to understand. Mourning photography is not simply about the dead. It is about preserving the shape of a family before time changes it forever. Mr. Halverson understands that better than anyone. He never rushes a photograph, never treats the work as routine. To him, every visit is delicate, something requiring patience. And over the years, he prepares you for the day when the responsibility will rest in your hands. At first, you believe the day is still far away. You are content to observe, to carry the equipment, to prepare the glass plates while he speaks with the families. But life rarely asks permission before changing direction. One cold evening, the studio has already grown quiet for the night. Mr. Halverson sits beside the work table. He looks tired, more tired than usual. You should go home and rest, you tell him. He shakes his head. I fear I have caught something unpleasant. A knock sounds at the door, soft, hesitant, the kind that comes after nightfall. Mr. Halverson closes his eyes briefly, then looks at you. I do not think I can manage the stairs tonight. For a moment you say nothing. You have accompanied him many times, but you have never gone alone. You already know what to do, he says gently. Move slowly and watch the light. You gather the camera case. Your hands feel less steady than usual, but you step into the night, and for the first time, you go alone. Inside the house, the air feels heavy. Several candles burn along a narrow hallway. Their flames shift slightly when the door closes behind you. A young woman waits at the foot of the stairs. Her eyes are red from crying, but she straightens when she sees you. You are the photographer, she asks. You nod. Yes. Your voice sounds steadier than you expected. She leads you upstairs. The house is quiet, except for the creak of the floorboards beneath your steps. At the end of the hallway, she opens a bedroom door. Soft daylight enters through a window, and beside that window sits the man. He has been placed in a chair, facing the light, his body angled slightly toward the glass. For a moment, the sight unsettles you more than you expected. He is older than most you have photographed. His skin pale, one eye not quite closed. Without Mr. Halverson beside you, the silence feels deeper. You place the camera case on the floor. Your hands feel cold. The young woman steps closer to the chair. He always sat here in the afternoons, she says, watching the street. You nod. Mr. Halverson's voice echoes quietly in your memory. Move slowly. Watch the light. You study the window. The grey daylight is soft but sufficient. You unfold the tripod. The metal joints click quietly as the legs extend. For a moment, your hands tremble. You pause. Breathe slowly. The room seems to wait with you. Gradually, your hands steady. But his head has fallen slightly forward. You lift his chin gently so the light reaches his face. Your touch is careful, respectful, almost as though you are helping someone who has simply fallen asleep. Behind you, the daughter watches quietly. We hoped he might look as he did when he sat there reading. You nod. I understand. You place a small book in his hands, adjust his fingers around it. The room remains silent as you work. Even the house itself seems to listen. You prepare the glass plate, coat it carefully, slide it into the holder. As you step back toward the tripod, your sleeve brushes one of the legs. The stand shifts. Your heart jumps. For a moment you imagine the camera falling, the plate shattering, the photograph ruined. You catch the tripod before it tips. Your hand grips the frame tightly. The daughter says nothing. She simply watches. You breathe slowly again. Move slowly. There is no need to rush. You reposition the tripod, this time more carefully. Then step behind the camera. The man sits quietly beside the window, the book resting in his hands. For a moment, he almost appears ready to turn the page. You remove the lens cap. Light enters the camera. 1 second passes, then another. The room grows very still. Then you replace the cap. The photograph is finished. You remain standing there for a moment, listening to the quiet. The daughter touches her father's shoulder. Then she looks at you. "Thank you," she says softly. The word lingers long after it is spoken. Later, as you walk back through the streets, you realize something has changed. Not in the city, not in the houses or the narrow roads, but in you. Somewhere between the trembling of your hands and the closing of the lens cap, the work has become yours. In the weeks that follow, the rhythm of the studio begins to shift. Some days, Mr. Halverson arrives late. Other days, he remains seated at the work table while you prepare the equipment. Occasionally, he does not come at all. When that happens, you run the studio yourself, answering the door, listening to families explain the losses they struggle to describe. Mr. Halverson never appears worried by the change. If anything, he seems quietly pleased. Sometimes he watches while you work, a faint smile resting on his face. One evening, while the city settles outside, he says something that stays with you. It is good that London has you now. At the time, you do not fully understand. The work simply continues, day after day, knock after knock at the door. Until one evening a boy arrives carrying a message. He stands awkwardly in the doorway. "Are you the photographer?" he asks. You nod. He hands you a folded note. The handwriting is unfamiliar, but the address written at the bottom makes you pause. Because you know that street very well. You have walked it many times before, often beside Mr. Halverson himself. You gather the camera case. The walk through the quiet streets feels strangely calm that night. When you reach the house, the windows are dark except for a single lamp upstairs. The door opens before you knock. An older woman stands there. You recognize her immediately. Mr. Halverson's housekeeper. For a moment, neither of you speaks. Then she steps aside. "He asked that you be the one," she says softly. Something tightens in your chest. You climb the stairs slowly. The bedroom door stands partly open. Light from a lamp touches the floor. You step inside. And there, beside the window, sits Mr. Halverson. He has been placed in a chair facing the light, his posture upright, his hands resting gently in his lap, and between them, his camera, the same camera he carried for so many years. For a moment you remain in the doorway, or the room is impossibly quiet. He looks peaceful, almost as though he has paused only briefly to rest. The housekeeper speaks behind you. He passed early this morning. He said, if this day came, you would know what to do. You do understand. Slowly, you set the camera case beside the door, then step closer to the chair. The window light touches his face softly, just as he always preferred. You adjust the chair slightly, so the light falls evenly across his features. Straighten his collar. Rest the camera more securely in his hands. For a moment, it almost appears as though he might lift it again. You step back to the tripod, your movements calm, steady. The plate is prepared carefully, the camera positioned. You stand behind it, looking at him one last time, because this photograph is different. Not simply a portrait of the dead, but a portrait of the man who taught you how to preserve memory itself. You remove the lens cap. Light enters the camera. 1 second passes, then another. Then you replace the cap. The photograph is finished. The housekeeper wipes her eyes, but she smiles faintly. He would have liked that. You pack the equipment slowly, and when you step outside, something becomes clear. Tomorrow, the studio will open again. The camera will wait on the work table, and when the bell above the door rings, it will be you who answers. For a moment you remain standing in the quiet street. The city moves gently around you. A carriage passes somewhere in the distance. Footsteps echo briefly along the pavement. You begin the walk back toward the studio, the same streets you walked beside Mr. Halverson for so many years. But now, they feel slightly different. Not unfamiliar, just changed, as though the city itself understands what has passed. When you reach the studio, the street is empty. You unlock the door and step inside. The familiar scent of chemicals and polished wood fills the room. You set the camera case on the work table, then light the lantern in the dark room. The red glow fills the small space, just as it did on the night Mr. Halverson first called you inside. You prepare the plate carefully. The glass slides into the tray, and slowly the image begins to appear. First, the outline of the chair, then the window, then the calm expression on Mr. Halverson's face. For a moment, it almost feels as though he is still watching the room. You study the photograph, and you realize something he understood long before you. This work was never truly about death. It is about memory, about preserving the small details time slowly carries away. The shape of a face, the way someone sits beside a window, the quiet presence of a person who once filled a room with life. Over the years, many families will come to your door. Children, parents, grandparents, some portraits simple, others carefully arranged. But each photograph serves the same purpose, to hold a moment still before time moves forward. And slowly, without planning it, your name spreads through the city. People speak of the photographer who moves gently through their homes, the one who understands how to let the light fall softly across a face. Years pass. London continues to change, but the bell above the studio door still rings late at night, just as it always has. You stand now beside the same work table, a clean glass plate resting in your hands, the lamp glowing quietly beside you. Outside, the city moves through another evening. Then the bell above the door rings, a small sound, soft, uncertain. You pause because you already know what it means. Somewhere in London tonight, someone has died and their family has come looking for the photographer. You set the glass plate gently on the table, pick up the lamp, and move toward the stairs, just as you have done many times before, and just as Mr. Halverson once did before you, because the work continues, not to dwell on death, but to remember life. A father beside his favorite chair, a child resting beneath a blanket, a family gathered together for one final moment before time carries them forward. You have learned that photographs do not stop time. Nothing can do that, but they allow us to hold a single moment still, a small piece of someone we loved, a quiet proof that they were here. And sometimes that is enough. Tonight, another family waits below. Another memory asks to be preserved. You take one last look at a glass plate resting on the table. Then you carry the lamp down the stairs, just as you have done so many times before, and just as Mr. Halverson once did before you. And slowly, let this life fade and come back to yourself. If you enjoyed this journey, you can subscribe. Let me know in the comments what story you'd like to fall asleep to next. Until then, rest well, sleep deeply, and I'll meet you in another life.